The utter horror unleashed by the Israeli state against Gaza has exposed a lot of people for who they really are. And one example is this moral panic that we've had for many years. You know the one I'm talking about. Cancel culture, the attack on free speech, the particular claim that free speech on campuses is under attack. Another one is there is no right to be not offended. I could go on. Have you noticed something? Have you noticed how that narrative just died a death after 7th of October? They're not even talking about it anymore, are they? And why is that? There's a very simple reason. Because the people who push the whole cancel culture narrative now want to cancel people en masse if they dare to speak out against the mass slaughter of the Palestinian people. And they want to suppress their right to free speech, including and indeed especially on campus. Let's just start, shall we, with the Republican governor of Texas, Greg Abbott. Now let's just listen to him in June 2019.
Some colleges are banning free speech on college campuses. Well, no more, because I'm about to sign a law that protects free speech on college campuses in Texas. Shouldn't have to do it. First Amendment guarantees it. Now, it's law in Texas.
Interesting stuff there from Greg Abbott. Let's just cut now to what free speech looks like on a university campus in Texas right now. What you're looking at here are scenes at the University of Texas in Austin, where students have gathered to demand that the university divest from companies doing business with Israel, given that minor detail of its genocidal onslaught against Gaza, and chanting, using the sacred right to free speech on campus, referred to, of course, by Greg Abbott, to demand an end to the occupation. And then the police stormed at them in the manner you can see. Now, if that was a scene at a university campus in Russia, you would not hesitate, any of us, to call out that for what it is. And to really hammer that point home, it wasn't just students they were going for, it was journalists too. Let's just look at that gentleman dragged to the ground there by Texan State Police.
Who are you with?
I'm with Fox 7.
Fox 7?
Yeah,
What's your name?
Carlos.
Carlos, what do you think of this?
I think it's, they were pushing me and they say that I hit an officer. I didn't hit an officer. They were pushing. You know what I mean? They were pushing me.
So that's a photographer working for the Murdoch Empire being dragged away and arrested just to hammer home how self-evidently indiscriminate this brutal crackdown is. Let's just see how the right-wing commentators have been dealing with all this. Graham Allen, a right-wing influencer in Texas, the host of Dear America on Rumble, which sounds like a great watch. Now, he's had a lot to say about free speech over the years. He certainly has. I did a little Twitter search, and it's one of his favourite subjects, in fact. He tweeted such things as, free speech is back, with 3 fire emojis. He's called for a war for free speech. Woof! Really battling there, isn't he? He's denounced AOC, saying she hates free speech. He's declared the left has completely destroyed free speech. Why are you still talking then? He says, bring back free speech. That's a classic sort of tweet of his. What's this free speech warrior out there on the front lines for free speech? What does he have to say about students in his state, Texas, exercising that glorious right of free speech that he's so incensed about and then getting roughed up and arrested by police officers? Here's your time to shine, Graham. Show your principle. This is what he tweeted. Texas is not New York. That's him boasting that Texas deals with these matters differently from New York, that they just go in and arrest people. In that, the state essentially is willing to come just crashing down on their backs if they dare to say the wrong thing. Now, Greg Abbott, that great warrior himself for free speech in Texas, tweeted out, arrests being made right now and will continue until the crowd disperses. These protesters belong in jail. Anti-Semitism will not be tolerated in Texas, period. Students joining in hate-filled anti-Semitic protests at any public college or university in Texas should be expelled. Well, look, we can see there, of course, his determination, we know this, to conflate anti-Semitism, that is a very real evil, the hatred of bigotry and prejudice directed at Jewish people, with opposing Israel engaging in one of the most grotesque slaughters of our age. anti-Semitism, he says? Well, given the Republican figurehead is Donald Trump, who has repeatedly used anti-Semitic rhetoric and has associated with and indeed endorsed far-right extremists, up to including neo-Nazis, probably want to redirect that particular criticism, buddy boy. Now, clearly what he's doing here is cracking down violently in a manner entirely reminiscent of brutal authoritarian dictatorships on the right to free speech. It's really very straightforward, actually. Well, how's that actually panning out? Well, the Travis County Attorney, Dalia Gaza, said that her office was presented with 46 criminal trespass arrests stemming from these protests. The court has declined, I'm just reading, all of those cases for lack of probable cause and released the individuals from jail. Well, nice try. Now, here's a video which was released for Free Speech Week at this same university, University of Texas, Austin, where these grim scenes unfolded just 6 months ago.
Why can members of the public come to campus at any time and engage in demonstrations and speeches?
So state law in Texas actually allows members of the public, just like our university community, to come onto campus and use our common outdoor areas for speech activity. I think that surprises a lot of students. They show up here and they think, who is this random stranger setting up a table talking about a thing I find upsetting? But that's protected by state law. And
well, you'd have to have a heart of stone not to laugh at this point. Now, many are making the point that if you want to see a hands-off approach from the Texan police, then something as outrageous as young people protesting mass slaughter, that's not going to make the cut. A massacre of a school, on the other hand, is a different matter, like the Uvalde student school massacre, in which 19 students and 2 teachers were murdered while police just stood back. Well, that was a very different story, wasn't it? Now, at Columbia University, they called in the cops and arrested more than 100 students. But faculty members at Columbia University walked out in solidarity, and in the same city, New York University faculty, their members also created a ring around the Gaza solidarity encampment to protect their students after the school threatened mass arrest. There are student encampments springing up across the United States, like UCLA in Los Angeles. At Emory University, a huge police crackdown arrived. That's Atlanta, including one student being tasered as they lay on the floor, which I watched, which was deeply unpleasant. At Northwestern University in Illinois, students formed a human chain to push back police trying to break their encampments. Now, I could go on, but look, the claims about free speech and cancel culture were always a nonsense. What was really going on there was people who believed they had the right to say overtly bigoted things about minorities, but no one could say anything back, and those people acted like they were victims. Often, in many cases, because they got criticised on social media. Now, since 7th of October, those same people have been at the forefront across the Western world of supporting actively, and in fact making it happen, getting people deplatformed, sacked, arrested, vilified, if they speak out against one of the great crimes of our age. You never had the left trying to call in state police to run riot, arresting and beating people up because of their views. These are people who ridiculed the idea that words meant violence, and yet now are treating anyone speaking out against genocide as committing violence simply by speaking. The monstrous, raging hypocrites. But look, I will say this. What impact do the authorities really think this is going to have in the end? Really, though? Do you think those students being arrested en masse and their fellow students because they spoke out against a crime of historic proportions are just going to dust it all off and never think of it again? Just move on with their lives. I can tell you something, that's not going to happen. This is a formative experience. They will never, ever, ever forget the monstrous injustices committed against them. It will define the way they look at the world forever. And not just them. Now, in these circumstances, protesters against various injustices have often said, the whole world is watching. Well, that's never been more true, because you see, before when that was said, we had to rely on the world seeing what was happening through those events being filtered through mainstream media outlets, which frankly hid things, lied about things, and twisted things. But now on social media, notwithstanding the attempt by those who run social media to clamp down on what's actually happening, the world really is watching. And they're watching 2 things. They're watching the obscenities being unleashed by the state of Israel against Palestinians, the grotesque crimes being committed against innocent people on an industrial scale. And they're also watching searing injustices being inflicted against those who dare to take a stand against these crimes. And on every single continent, there are people, lots of people, watching all of that. And their worldview, the way they look at the world, that's changing forever. They will never look at things in quite the same way ever again. And that's going to have profound consequences. Now, it's up to us to harness those consequences, to build movements which channel the fury, the righteous fury that so many people who have seen things they will never unsee. But the apologists for this crime, they've lost the battle for public opinion on both sides of the Atlantic, and that's only heading in one direction. And that's why they're trying to suppress anyone who dares to speak out against this horror, because they know what that means. It means A, demands on governments to take action against Israel, and B, it will mean a reckoning with those who facilitated one of the great crimes of our age. That reckoning's going to happen because the crime is simply too big. And that's before the offensive against Rafah, and I'm afraid to say unspeakable crimes that are still to come. So you can clamp down on these protests, guys, but this isn't a sign of strength. It's a sign of weakness. And those students aren't going to give up because they know they're up against one of the great crimes of our age, and they know they'll never forgive themselves if they don't speak out. And that's infectious. The more people see the crimes committed against the people of Gaza and the injustices committed against those speaking out, the more people are going to be determined to take a stand. And that is why we are approaching an endgame, which will not, I'm afraid, be a particularly pleasant experience for those who thought they could simply get away with using their platforms to support or stay silent about a genocide. Please like and subscribe. Do leave your comments. Do share the video. Keep the show on the road and help us take on the pro-war media. Patreon.com/Andres84 and listen to the podcast. I'll speak to you soon.